Hi again. So I call these two techniques the twins, delayed sword and sword of destruction, which we're going to talk about now. The reason I call them the twins is because they're more or less the same technique. You're blocking based on an attack as you step back to a fighting stance. You're kicking, you're chopping. The only difference is that plane of action where you're doing it. Delayed sword, inward, outward, then outward, inward for sword of destruction. Now, sword of destruction is interesting because it teaches two things. It teaches not only how to create that distance on a punch that you may or may not see. You can kind of work with the punch a little bit, but it teaches you how to create distance. And more importantly, it teaches you that outward, inward, that muscle response where you're using that muscular action to the best of its ability. We're going to kind of talk about that. So sword of destruction, it's for essentially a roundhouse, a left roundhouse punch where they're going to punch you right in the face with their left hand, which doesn't make a lot of sense, but we'll kind of talk about that. From a boxing standpoint, it kind of makes sense to a slim degree. But as far as going through the technique, this is it. So, as far as this particular technique, it goes into a right outward block. Now, this is an outward extended block. Essentially, an outward block itself, you bring up your center line and it comes out, about eye level. Now, an outward extended block, you're bringing it out to here and then rolling that arm over as if you've got a pen again in your hand and you're going to hit something with it. You're going to poke something with it. So with that said, that punch is coming in, you're bringing that up, you're looking at your palm, you're bringing that out and hitting it. All with fairly good 45-degree angle here, or well, angle here. You want to keep a really stable block. Now, you hit, step back, cat stance, kick. Then as you step down, this is going to turn into an inward chop. So that hand sword, instead of going out, like with most of the techniques we've had, in this case, it's going to go in on an inward plane of action. Now, that's going to go right down that arm. This other hand is going to be essentially place check, if you will. It's just there to make sure if he tries to do something funny, that you've got something you can do with it. Now, as you're stepping back, you're creating distance from where that punch is going to be. You're going from here to here, and then the cat stance, you're creating even more distance. That's really what you want to get out of this technique. Is not that you're stepping back away from them, but more you're creating an opening for that kick. And it's the same front kick. You're going to step back, do a cat stance like with the basics where we talked about that. That foot's going forward. It's built for a front kick. You're going to bring that knee up, extend it out, and kick with the ball of your foot. And then as you bring it back down to that fighting stance, or that neutral stance, you're going to hit through either the neck, you could kind of go jaw, but even that connection here on several bony areas, right into that artery that's in the neck. I could go into all the details on that, but we'll kind of go into that later. For now, I just want basic targets more than anything. And knowing that this hand sword, you can hit practically anything you want to with it. I mean, you could hit way up here in side of the head if you want. It's a little high as far as a target, but you really want to keep it more shoulder level. But if you want, you could pop right up into that, either under the jaw, up at that little space on the side of the head. The targets are limitless at that point because that kick, it's actually going to bring them down a little anyway. So you could really get away with it. And that is sword of destruction. We're going to kind of catch up on the basics with some of the weapons that we've talked about, some of the blocks that we've talked about, go really in depth with it, more than what we've talked about from here. We're actually going to start talking about center line and a couple of other things as well, zones, height, width, and depth, that sort of thing. That's going to be for the next few, the basics episodes. And you may actually see some forms and sets coming up too. But until then, later.